Hello? Hello?
Podcast Network Asia.
What's going on? This is Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed.
I said, give me a hell yeah!
Hey, this is Zeta Zay.
Hello, WWE Universe in the Philippines. This is Charlotte.
Talent is not sexually transmitted.
You need to go back to the drawing board because your game absolutely sucks!
Hey everyone, this is Jeff Cobb.
I'm Lewis Howley. I'm Sam Spoker. We are pretty deadly. Yes, boy. Yes, boy.
Hello, my name is Ilya Dragunov, the star, the NXT UK champion, and you're listening to the Wrestling Podcast.
You are watching and listening to the longest running weekly episodic Filipino wrestling podcast. This is the Wrestling Podcast. Stancy Romoran and Chino Liao coming to you on another Thursday live stream. Thank you so much for joining us over on Kumu at Wrestling Pod and on Facebook.com/Wrestling Podcast. Before we start the show, we have to congratulate a few friends of the podcast. First off, congratulations to our boy, Mr. Philippine Wrestling, Jake De Leon, for winning the MWF Championship over the weekend at Road to Fate. So, para sa mga nag-expect na meron tayong Road to Fate review, sorry to disappoint you. Wala pong Road to Fate review for this live stream. We're gonna have that next week when your Dabarkads Rowan ASH comes back from academic leave.
It is official.
So, magbabalik loob siya sa podcast by next week's audio only. We also gotta say congratulations to our good friend Carlos Zamora, El Guapo, for landing on the PWI 500 this year. He is number 404. So yeah, sabi ni Ro on the pre-show kanina, it's really a kayfabe list. But, you know, anytime one of our friends makes a list like that, it's always something worth celebrating here on the Wrestling Podcast. Got a lot to talk about for tonight. Some news outside the ring, as usual. The future of NXT, some highlights from Raw and SmackDown. And we're also going to be giving you our winner pick for AEW's World Championship match happening next week. But first, let's tell you about one of the ways you can support the podcast, and that is by being a Wrestling Podcast patron.
All right. So in a month's time, we will be having another premium live event viewing party. It is going to be Extreme Rules. And you can be a part of that by joining and subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast. The URL is ticking on the bottom of the screen right there. For as low as $5 or around 280 pesos and climbing because pahina na pahina ang peso against the dollar. If you subscribe, you can get access to our Discord community where we talk wrestling, video games, sneakers, sports, a whole bunch of stuff. It's slowly growing, and we have a lot of fun as well on the watch parties that happen there. You get exclusive review content as well of the weekly television shows, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, Dynamite, Rampage, even MWF Action Novella, Care of Rowan, and pay-per-views as well. And then also we have merch. Babyface producer Mike, let's put the merch up on the screen. Ayun, there it is. We are just finalizing earlier today our shipment of free merch. Because if you join the Patreon program, you get dibs on one of these shirts for free because you are a loyal supporter. And then if we do pasabays as well from stores like WWE Shop, Shop AEW, Pro Wrestling Tees, and other online stores from around the world, you can be a part of that pasabay as well. So again, patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast for as low as $5 and or 280 pesos.
All right.
That's it.
So, let's start off with news outside the ring, and we're gonna start with Velveteen Dream kasi meron siyang confession basically kanina on Instagram Live, and this is coming off yung allegations ni EC3 from earlier this week where EC3 said na at a party sometime in 2017-2018 dun daw sa bahay ni EC3, naglagay daw si Velveteen Dream ng phone. Iniwan niya yung phone niya dun sa CR tapos videotape daw niya si EC3 so he can get EC3's body parts on video. So bumanat si Velveteen Dream.
The money shot.
Yes. So bumanat si Velveteen Dream and then basically sinabi niya kay EC3 na nagda-drugs daw sila, na nagko-cocaine daw sila. So of course, before we say anything else, masama pong mag-drugs, masama po ang cocaine. Di po natin yung tinatangkilik dito. What do you guys think about this confession from Velveteen Dream on his IG Live?
Before I answer that, he was number one asked me on Kumu. He asked, will Pro Wrestling Tees spam us with unnecessary emails when we order? No, we will be doing the ordering from Pro Wrestling Tees if you join us. So you don't have to get the emails because we'll be getting the emails for you. Anyway, back to Velveteen Dream and the cocaine. So it's a pretty weird accusation to throw. So I guess he was trying to, yun nga sabi ni Aaron sa chat, hilaan pababa. But taking cocaine, in my opinion, isn't as bad as sexually harassing your coworkers. So I don't know what he was trying to accomplish there. Di naman part si EC3 ng any other major company right now, so I don't think he's going to get fired or anything. He showed up in NWA earlier this week, but the contracts there are, I believe, per appearance. So there's that.
I don't know, man. I really like mudslinging, politicking is like my least favorite part of life in any field. It's just my least favorite part of it. Like, ang dami nyo nang iniisip, diba? Like how to get booked, how to be a better wrestler, how to get back into WWE, whatever else you think of. Tapos iisipin mo pa, bakit niya video-videoan yung edits ko, diba? O bakit sila nag-cocaine, diba? Like, come on, grow the fuck up, guys. Come on. Chismes and hearsay. Just grow up, move on. It doesn't need to take energy away from your day-to-day life.
That's actually a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because it applies to a whole bunch of people. So
Exactly.
So thank you for being a positive force in this world, Chino.
Yeah, I mean,
masyado na maraming naghihilaan pababa. Huwag na tayo makijoin doon. Ako, ayaw ko na mahila ako pababa. So huwag na tayo makisali doon. Diba? All right, let's move on. Let's give you an update on the AEW Chaitan Throwdown. As of this week, hindi na raw suspended sina Pat Buck, Michael Nakazawa, and Christopher Daniels. It was reported na their role in the scuffle backstage was they were trying to break people up, which is why hindi na siguro sila na-suspend. Pero so far, wala pa ring updates on CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Ace Steel. Right now, ang alam lang ng mga nagre-report is that meron pa ring independent third-party investigation na nagaganap. So there could be some legal issues, which is also why wala pa tayong official na naririnig from either party of the Chaitan Throwdown.
Before I talk about that, I just want to say hey to our good buddy, brother Sandro Hermoso, who says, if cocaine will get you as ripped as EC3, game na.
Batak ka na, Sandro.
Siya lang po yun, hindi po kami. Wala po kami kinalaman dyan.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, basta wag kang manakit na ibang tao, you can do all the drugs you want. Just don't hurt anyone else. Anyway, Aaron is right. Brandon Cutler is also part of these people who are also unsuspended. And the reason why nobody's really mentioned it on screen, some people on TikTok are saying, weak si Tony Khan kasi hindi na pinangalanan sina CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. And he didn't directly address last week why they were being stripped of the championships. But it has to be reiterated, I believe not everyone is doing a good job of mentioning this little fact. But there is an actual third-party investigator looking into the whole situation. So that's why there are legal repercussions that are looming if anyone ever addresses this out of line. So that's why talagang mahirap pag-usapan siya on screen, maybe not behind the scenes, but on screen, yes.
I mean, even tayo as wrestling commentators, not like stand commentators, but like commentators on the business in general, hindi rin natin siya mapag-usapan ng maayos because we are all essentially third parties, diba? None of us were present there. We don't really know what happened. We're only relying on the news that comes out. And with something like this that is both legally and company-wide sensitive, ang hirap din niyang sabihin which part is actually true, which part actually happened. So I don't like commenting on things when I don't know the whole story. I like making hearsay, and kung hearsay nga ito, but then it's just the commenting on things is just it's pretty iffy at this point.
Actually, tama tong sinabi ni Lance. Be like Kenny Omega. Just enjoy your life despite the suspension. Kenny Omega looks to be living his best life. He just reunited with his former tag team partner, Kota Ibushi, in Japan. So, based on their pictures, mukhang nag-enjoy naman sila. Kasama si Michael Nakazawa. Nagvi-video games, kumakain sa labas. So, ayun, buti pa sila.
I mean,
Sana
Punk
all.
threw the first punch. From what he displays on the internet and on interviews, Kenny seems like a pretty chill person. So it seems very much like him to just enjoy life and just be at peace with the fact that shit just happened.
Yeah. Tsaka, let's all be clear that Ace Steel bit Kenny Omega like a bitch. Let's just all remember that fact.
Yeah, that's still my favorite joke in wrestling. Like 2 weeks
Fucking
after the
biting
fact.
as your first move. What a bitch.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about NXT and its future. But first, happy Payday Thursday, everyone. And dahil payday, as usual, you've got those sales going on. So here's how you can support the podcast with your online shopping over on Lazada.
On Lazada, it is the Sulit Sweldo sale until September 17th. So it's until Saturday. If you want to be a part of that, if you want to get everything that you want and need from Lazada, kasi hashtag nasa Lazada yan, all you got to do is use our affiliate link to support the podcast in the process. Podlink.co/IAM. Podlink.co/letters IAM. Type that in a mobile browser, add to cart, and check out from the app. And what you buy will help us do what we do here in the podcast at no extra cost.
And now a quick word from our other podcasts on Podcast Network Asia. Let's get to some shoutouts over on Kumu.
Saying hey to Fight Star, who sent us MVP, Dakdak, and Night Night stickers.
That is a cool ass name,
Yeah,
Fight
Star. If I'm not mistaken, he might be a streamer as well, but I don't know. So thank you, Fight Star. He was number one, also sent us a Budo sticker. So thank you for that as well. He was number one, comments a lot. Marami siyang sinasabi. Thank you, Kenny, for saving the dog. Yeah, thank you, Kenny, for saving Larry. Larry the dog. Our good friend Scamageddon asks, why does Christopher Daniels look like Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Yeah, I just looked it up. He does look like him. It's old white guy thing. Thank you to everyone who has. He was number one. Also sent a super halo and MVP. Maraming salamat. Thank you, man. Scamageddon also just sent us yung super halo. Tuloy yan.
Hey,
tapatan yung mga sinasend
Thanks
ni,
everybody
he was number
for
one
hooking
in
us up.
5-star. Yeah, definitely. Abby is also tuned in right now on Kumu.
Yamashita. Yamashita dyan.
We're trying to grow our Kumu viewership a little bit. So if you want to jump on Kumu as well from Facebook or wherever, whichever is easier for you, maybe you can try that out. Anyway, thank you again. Please keep smashing those hearts. Tapos let everyone know that you like the wrestling talk here on Kumu. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about NXT and its future. So at the very end of the episode, there was a video package narrated by Shawn Michaels. And then at the very, very end, yung NXT 2.0 logo, nagmorph siya into this version na is kind of hinting at black and gold NXT, or I guess in this case, white and gold NXT coming back. So as an added detail, ni-report ni Brian Alvarez from the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Halloween Havoc, which is happening next month, is listed internally as an NXT takeover. So alam naman natin na naging NXT 2.0 siya. Takeovers basically disappeared off the map. So what do you guys think about this rebrand of the rebrand for NXT?
A bunch of people like it. I mean, everyone likes it because everyone likes black and gold. Yes, for sure. I just don't know what it means right now kasi hindi pa tayo nagkakaroon ng bagong batch of Performance Center signees. I've seen people wanting it to go back to being a third brand. Pero to me kasi, I don't really have that much interest in NXT being a third brand because when Black and Gold NXT was the so-called third brand like a few years back, that was in the face of Raw and SmackDown being Vince McMahon's brands, diba? So you have Triple H with NXT, and then you have Raw and SmackDown being Vince's stuff. So now that Raw and SmackDown are Triple H's brands, I don't know why you need a third brand in that vein. Kasi NXT 2.0 was a purely Shawn Michaels endeavor. And do you really want a Shawn Michaels brand right there? It's like, I'm totally fine with NXT being developmental again. Completely developmental again. Kasi it does serve a purpose that way. So it's good that way. And I don't know what this means. Is the Performance Center going to sign indie stars again? Are we going to move on from college athletes and other sport athletes back to indie stars? Hindi pa nila nililinaw yun for me.
Okay, a few things. Number one, I think this also has to do with Solo Sikoa walking away with the North American Championship. It now gives the Bloodline reign over all three of the WWE shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And it's a good lead up for the upcoming big pay-per-view of Survivor Series. Because a few years ago, Survivor Series made it a point of contestation to have NXT be that third particular brand. I would love to see it again. I don't have a problem with Shawn Michaels being a fan and a child of the Attitude Era. I appreciate ko and more than respect his contributions to the business. Now, with Triple H in charge, it does move a lot of the Vinceisms that Vince McMahon implemented throughout NXT 2.0. I'm not necessarily the biggest watcher or fan of NXT 2.0, so a return to the black and gold brand is more than welcome for me. However, yung shows na Raw and SmackDown already have all the black and gold people that we like watching. Sila Ciampa, sila Gargano, diba? Nandun sila eh. Diba? So I don't know what it act like with Raw here saying. I also don't know what it means to say na babalik na kami sa black and gold. So does it mean like edgier storylines again? Does it mean again more indie stars? What does it actually mean? Diba? Yun din yung ano ko. While I like it, I still want to know what it means.
Yeah, patikim lang naman siya if anything. I would argue that the edgier storylines were supposed to come with NXT 2.0 kasi that was part of what was being presented as the rebrand na storylines would be edgier under this new direction. If you remember the black and gold era, hindi siya very edgy. It was really just indie wrestling on TV.
Yeah.
Which is not to take a dump on it. I actually liked black and gold era very much. But kunwari yung pagpapasexy ng Toxic Attraction, we didn't really have that in black and gold NXT.
Yeah, 2.0 already had edgy stuff. Like, it had horny storylines, diba? So,
sina Idris Enofe,
yeah,
diba?
I guess maybe what it will have is that less cartoony characters, I guess.
Oo nga pala.
Yeah, probably.
So less of Tony D'Angelo.
So maybe there's that. I don't know. Even, yeah, as Chino said, there's already a lot of Triple H's fingerprints on Raw and SmackDown right now. So I don't know how this is going to be any different.
Yung mga caricatures.
Maybe it's just the storylines of NXT 2.0 with indie stars. So maybe it's that. So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. It's not like indie wrestlers totally disappeared in the face of 2.0 kasi people like Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez, they came in, they were working the indies. I think Fallon Henley was also working the indies. Andre Chase, but this was also someone who was working ROH and the indies. So, I don't know. Would be nice, I guess, if we had more information down the road. But until then...
See, Jensen, also indie star.
Exactly, yeah. So, until then, all we can really do is speculate on what this means. Probably as soon as next week. Kasi they already taped episodes for NXT. Itong si John Regala naglagay na ng spoilers in the chat. Up to you guys if you want to engage with the spoiler comment. But yeah, we'll find out more in the next week. For now though, let's talk about...
One thing. No Wendy Chu slander is allowed here.
Yes.
We are not slandering Wendy Chu. If you don't like Wendy Chu, you can leave this chat.
Yeah, I am a huge Wendy Chu fan, so please. Wendy Chu love lang dito sa Wrestling Podcast. Alright, let's talk about Solo Sikoa kasi nabanggit na rin nga ni Chino. So, Solo Sikoa won the North American Championship to end yesterday's episode. Very surprising result given na 1, Solo is already on the main roster, so why now? And 2, he's still a babyface on NXT when he's a heel as a part of the Bloodline on the main roster. So, what does this tell you?
I don't know what it tells me, actually. It tells me that one thing, yes, as people are pointing out in the chat, it's part of the Bloodline having a lot of belts, except for honorary Uso Sami Zayn. It's also one of those things na it was storyline promised din kay Solo na magkakaroon siya ng championship shot for the North American Championship, diba? So there was that. And they didn't push through with it because Ricochet came in. So I guess it was them fulfilling that booking directive. So there's that. But I also don't know what it means. Will it mean that Solo is splitting time between NXT and SmackDown. It would also mean that, like Mark Spector, he has two different identities, or hindi naman two different identities, but two different alignments. He is.
Hey, Mark Spector is bipolar, okay? Or sorry,
yeah, it's DID.
has
Anyway,
DID. So I don't know if this is
will he be a face on NXT and then be a heel when he goes up on SmackDown? So it does raise a lot more questions than it answers. Pero on the whole, though, I'm okay with it. Solo is a good performer. He has the talent that his older brothers have. So di naman sila nagkamali with this decision.
I like it, giving him the title. Like I said, I think they really are doing a setup job for Survivor Series here. It might be too early. I might be wrong. Pero kasi giving a main storyline character a title in what is essentially developmental only elevates that brand. Because now that developmental championship needs to be defended or has the bigger chance to be defended on a main WWE pay-per-view show. Diba? So it might end up being Bloodline versus All here. That's like a far-reaching prediction that I have here. Kasi it makes a lot of sense kung lahat sila may titles na tapos lahat sila nasa isang show lang din. Diba? So it's a huge possibility for the bookers or story writers or whatever to just have the Bloodline face off against other contenders during Survivor Series.
I need to ask the chat this because someone on Twitter, I think it was SRS, who pointed out that the Bloodline now has 7 championships among them. Has there been a faction or a stable that has had more collective championship gold at the same time? Kasi parang kakaiba tong diba, 7 championships, both world titles, both sets of tag team championships, and then yung North American Championship.
Yeah, parang wala pang ganito. Sa Bloodline na naman na uso yung factions uli, diba? So it does seem to be unprecedented. So it is pretty cool, I guess, if you're a fan of the Bloodline, which I think the fan base is pretty divided on. So yun, yeah. I don't think it's happened before. Yeah, Undisputed Era was just what 3 championships: NXT, North American, and the Tag Team Championship.
Yeah, pero di ba yung Shield dumating din sa point na lahat sila champion? I mean,
yeah, they had 2 championships, the tag titles and the US title.
Yeah, but it's only because they were 3 guys. Diba? So it's the argument.
No, what I'm saying is that the Bloodline has the WWE Championship, the Universal Championship, Raw Tags, SmackDown
unified.
Tags,
right.
and North American. Lima pala, hindi pala 7. So there are 5.
5, right? So yeah, I think it's kasi mas madami sila naturally. They would have more championships.
It's kind of inflated then because of the unifications. So there's that.
Yeah.
But technically, if you really are to count, it's really just 3 championships. When you think about it.
Kasi unify
na. So may ganun. Bullet Club as well. But yeah, I think Bullet Club still has more championships technically. More champions kasi mas marami sila, and then mas marami ring championships sa NJPW.
Yeah, again, it just bodes for how large the stable is, number one, and for how large the actual promotion is. So I really don't have a problem.
Last note on the Bloodline, Chino, nabanggit mo na it could be a setup for Survivor Series where they face off against a super group of babyfaces. I would love to see that. Kasi ang dami nang nakabangga ng Bloodline over the last 2 years. Like a representative from every group or from every storyline that the Bloodline has had over the last 2 years. Kind of like what, not to put myself over here, but kind of like what I wanted for MSG back in the old days, na lahat ng mga nakabangga ng grupo, there's a representative and there's a super group of babyfaces to like topple them down. That would be something to watch come Survivor Series kung yun yung naging endgame nila.
It's also going to play... interesting din yung storyline eh. I'm sorry, because you're also going to have to include Sami Zayn in that lineup if you want to fill out the 5-man roster. Kasi diba, traditional Survivor Series match is 5-on-5. Now, if that were the case, doon papasok na yung kwenta ni Sami as the honorary ooze, quote-unquote, kahit alam natin sugot lang siya sa Bloodline, right? So,
diba, banggain niya si Gunther.
Diba? Yun nga yung maganda eh. Isipin nyo, diba? How big a role will Sami Zayn actually play in that story? That's actually something I'm looking forward to the side of this potentially epic face-off.
So there. Something to watch out for, but I wouldn't keep my hopes up just yet kasi di naman natin alam what's gonna happen. Let's zoom out here and talk about NXT 2.0 celebrating its 1-year anniversary. And after a year, ni-recap nga nung episode lahat ng highlights from 2.0. How would you assess it 1 year after it premiered as the rebrand of NXT?
Okay, it's kind of tricky because NXT has a pretty complex relationship with the fans, with the WWE fans. So I would say that as far as its purpose as a developmental territory, it did its job. It really did its job in preparing yung mga performance center prospects for life in the WWE, for performance in the WWE. But that didn't always translate to the best wrestling that NXT Black and Gold used to have and that fans fell in love with. So talagang iba siya. I enjoyed it kasi I like watching these prospects develop. I'm kind of weird in that aspect. I know a lot of people just want to watch good wrestling. They want to watch their favorites tear it up and have barn burners. I want to see people from all skill levels try to do their thing here. But on the whole, though, if you expected it to be a third brand, if you expected it to be the same as it was before, then you would have to say that it kind of fails the mark a little bit. Some of the indie stars were there. They helped anchor the show. That was great, but you kind of got the feeling that you couldn't wait for them to graduate to the main roster. And that's totally valid. But as a whole, naintindihan ko naman yung purpose niya and pumasa naman siya sa akin for me.
May letter grade ka ba, Ro?
Letter grade, wait, let me get back to you on that.
Ako, I mentioned something earlier in the show about how we were getting edgier storylines. Let me explain. I'm actually saying na yung action and the plots are sort of defanged in the 2.0 era. Parang wala na masyadong patayan because I guess you get that when the skill levels of the competitors are at a certain peak, right? That's why you get a lot of those indie guys throwing out those barn burners. And I appreciate all of that. Diba? That's what made me hooked onto NXT. With 2.0, yun nga, mas madaming developmental people and there are so many new faces na ang hirap din kapitan. I personally have not been watching NXT 2.0 as regularly. So nahihirapan din ako to keep up with the current goings on and that part of the WWE. However, I enjoyed the matches that I did see. It's just that madami din tayong nakikitang faces na parang, who are you? That's what I get. Although you can get that because when you watch it, you get more exposed. It's not the
that's really more on you for not watching really regularly.
Pero ako kasi parang sanay na ako dun sa black and gold eh. Like I am an old man, I'm set in my ways, So NXT 2.0 didn't really do anything so spectacular that it would keep me hooked on. You know what I mean? Like hindi siya kasing captivating ng black and gold. And that is why, for better or for worse, it's fallen out of my wrestling radar.
All right, so
yun yung grade na mabibigay ko.
Okay, so what's the letter grade coming from you?
Sure, a solid,
okay,
just middle of the road B.
I would give it a B as well. Mostly because that's kind of high then, but it's also mostly because of the anchors that they brought over to help make sure that the rookies have a veteran presence to learn from.
Tsaka, the main roster integration has been stepped up.
Yeah.
A whole bunch during the 2.0 era. Diba? You got Dolph Ziggler as the NXT champion. Diba? Nobody expected that to happen, but he was there. But Natalia had a spell. Ricochet just came back. So kung may makukuha tayo from the 2.0 era, I think it's that. I think the main roster integration, especially for people who are just sort of idling in the main roster, to do a quick trip to Orlando, diba? To do the NXT 2.0 run or NXT Black and Gold run. Kasi it does wonders to reinvigorate somebody's career.
Ito, magandang question from Fred in the comments. Your pick for MVP of NXT 2.0?
Yeah, I would agree with Derv here. Sorry. Braun is an MVP because he was given the ball and at a really, really fresh point of his wrestling career. We're literally watching him in the first year of his career. And he has proven himself to be a great enough athlete to fit in. So I would say he's an MVP from day one. Mandy as well for totally reinventing herself and proving that you can get better in the system, in the WWE system. You can make jokes about the system, but it does work. So good on Mandy, and it's only a matter of time before they reintroduce her as her toxic attraction self and be a big player on the main roster.
Yeah, ako din, Mandy. More than Braun, really, because they were able to repackage her in such a way that nobody expected and made her look dominant as a champion. Diba? Who would have expected Mandy Rose to look this dominant almost a year or over a year into her reign? Diba? So parang ang ganda ng transformation niya. I named her most improved wrestler for last year's Wrestling Podcast Awards for a reason, and I'm sticking by it. So, I really love the trajectory her career is in. I really love how strong they're making her look. So I say Mandy Rose for me.
Probably put Carmelo Hayes in there as well, just because he's someone you can really expect to steal the show. Someone who has been a believable heel. Parang main roster ready now. We've said that so many times on the pod. The dude is main roster ready and it shows in his work. So I'd probably lump Carmelo Hayes in with Braun and Mandy for MVPs of 2.0. All right, let's graduate to the main roster and talk about SmackDown. And the big highlight coming out of the Blue brand is how our top feud looks to be Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross, since it looks like Roman Reigns isn't going to be around for a while ulit, given his status. So what do you guys think about this? Na ito na, nagkatotoo na yung sinabi ni Kross na he was going to go after Drew after Clash at the Castle.
So before I answer that, people have been asking. I didn't think you guys would be asking about big guy, security guy Hank. So I didn't put him in the agenda for today. Pero sige.
Oh, sabi ni Ro, ayaw na pag-usapan. But I like the Hank thing.
I didn't think people would appreciate it like we did. So that's why I didn't put it there. So let's talk about Hank really quickly and say that I don't know if you guys noticed it like we did, but it was the whole Hank and Big Body Javi storyline was a play on the trope of security guys in wrestling being independent wrestlers from the area. So see, Hank Walker was introduced as a security guy, but everyone knew. You all know. The conceit is you knew that he was a performance center prospect and that they played on this trope by actually introducing him as a security guy who could wrestle. And then he gets his NXT contract as a wrestler. So that was pretty cool. And it showed that they told the story well because the CWC crowd popped for Big Hank's win against Big Body Javi. So that was pretty good. And that was a nice little story that they told.
Yeah, they built it up over 3 weeks. Napaka-meta nga, napaka-self-aware, and I appreciated Vic Joseph and Wade Barrett yung banter nila. Sabi ni Vic, si Wade Barrett kasi, kinukutya niya si Hank, diba? Parang secure ka lang eh. Paul Blart Mall Cup ka lang, ganyan. Sabi ni Vic Joseph, weren't you arena security as well, circa 06, along with a certain fella? So that was a really good touch from Vic and Wade.
Yeah.
Yeah, ang ganda lang nung pagka-beta niya, the writing. It's like, it really just caters to a whole different group of friends.
Yeah, Jeb, I know I did see Hank wrestle at Level Up. I know that the CWC fans, because they're the regulars, they've seen him wrestle at Level Up. But still, syempre, you approach it, you watch NXT regularly and approach it as someone who is totally new to Big Hank because you just see him as a background character. But that was a really good way to introduce him. And sana we see more. If NXT is to go back to white and gold or whatever, we get more smart stories like this. I wanna acknowledge whichever creative team member pitched this story for Big Hank.
Yeah, tsaka that type of storytelling is what I want out of AEW because they relied on dark and elevation to a point na parang, di mo na pa yung dark and elevation. Sorry na lang if you miss some story beats on the main shows. Like how NXT and Level Up tell their stories is how I prefer it because I don't always have the time to watch Level Up and I can't be bothered to watch dark or elevation. So, yun. All right, let's go back to the Drew and Cross point. What do you guys think about this story here?
Okay lang. I mean, like, I know some people don't like Cross. He could be like a mold from the mid-2000s WWE, early 2000s WWE. I like Cross. Since his return to the main roster, medyo he's been parked a little bit. So, medyo nawala yung momentum niya for me. Nawala yung excitement for me. So, I hope that they kind of bring it back with this one. It could be fun. It could be fun, but Drew and Roman was so much more fun that I totally forgot that Cross was there. So that's where I'm at with this.
I like it because it gives Karrion Kross something to do. I like Kross. I'm trying to recall here kung nag-abot ba sila sa TNA. Probably not. No. But I like how they're giving Kross something to do because if he walks away victorious from this rivalry, it'll build him up better to take on Roman Reigns, which I guess was his end game after all said and done. Diba? So parang ang ganda nun. And if Drew beats Kross, ganun din. It builds him up more and then it allows him to face Roman Reigns in the future. So either way, I feel like it's a win-win for whoever walks away here. And it's just a win-win for fans as well because it allows us, yung mga may ayaw kay Kross, they are given the opportunity to get to know the character a little bit more. And I don't know how good of a job that'll be, pero it gives him exposure. And as a wrestler, that's all you can really ask for is, time to work.
Ito, magandang example tong comment ni Janelle who says, despite the cool entrance and Scarlett, he's still not sold on Karrion Kross being a top guy.
Siyempre, kasi he hasn't been written in that position yet. I mean, like, yes, the idea is for him to be the top guy, but not right now because he still has to work to get there. He did get damaged from Vince's handling of him last year, diba? So it's totally
the BDSM Spartan.
The BDSM gladiator, diba? So nobody expects you to see him as a top guy just yet, but we do hope that you open your mind and accept the possibility that he could, because he does have to put in the work himself to get there.
Tsaka, kung may Vince-looking guy dito sa WWE, I'm pretty sure it would be Kross, diba? You got the size, the muscles, the angry face. So parang sayang lang yung run niya talaga because they really mishandled that Karrion Kross run here. But this time around, it's truer to his NXT persona. It's truer to his persona in the Indies, diba? Na parang doombringer siya at TikTok and all of that. So I like how they're presenting it to a much larger audience.
All right, let's cross over to Raw. And something that we have been waiting weeks to see finally came true. Damage Control has taken the Women's Tag Team Championships from Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah. And a lot of the chatter on social media is, bakit pa nanalo tong sina Raquel and Aaliyah only to lose 2 weeks later?
Because this isn't publicized as much. There was a bit of backstage explaining saying that Raquel was being given some shine for her eventual singles push. So there's that. Pero syempre, like I said on the review, you kind of just have to give the moment to the people you were building it up for. So sometimes you could be democratic, sometimes you could be equal and fair, but sometimes also you just have to go for what you were building for in the first place. So yun tuloy, na question ka. So anyway, this was the moment that they were building up since they brought back Io and Dakota back at SummerSlam. So buti naman that they pivoted really quickly to this. It was the obvious decision, and hopefully we'll be getting that big match with Naomi and Sasha when they come back.
Yeah, by the way, Naomi, Sasha killing it in New York Fashion Week. Good for them. But as far as Damage Control is concerned, I'm happy that they both won. I am a big fan of all three of these women. So I'm glad they walked away with the titles. Yun nga, nandun ako sa point na sayang naman si Raquel and kawawa lalo si Aaliyah because she is getting genetic sooner rather than later. But I guess that's what happens, that's what happens in this business. Tama naman din si Ro. It's just part of the business, just an unfortunate part of it.
Yeah, I think we're all just waiting for that point where we get Damage Control versus Sasha and Naomi, because at this point, that's the money match. Kung totoo nga, di ba, na Sasha and Naomi have really been brought back, that's the only money match I see coming for the Women's Tag Team Championship. So, really good stuff. A lot of people here in the comments, bias nila si Io Sky. So, good for you guys. Good for all of us, actually, that Damage Control are now the Women's Tag Team Champions. Other stuff going on sa Raw. Kevin Owens had this very passionate promo that he cut on Austin Theory. And he's really doing a lot of his best work as a babyface, which I guess if you know him from his ROH work, you know that he can really flip-flop between face and heel and kill it. But this side of Kevin Owens, we haven't really seen this in quite a while.
Yeah, remember when his contract was up and then we were all predicting where he would go. So he stayed in WWE. So sobrang big winner niya for staying. And partida nag-stay pa siya nung panahon ni Vince, diba? So they had him go through the whole not a liar thing. I'm a liar, I'm not a liar. They had them go the Ezekiel bit as well.
Yeah,
so
the
he
Ezekiel bit.
really ate a lot of shit just to get here and hold out for the Triple H era where he could finally be let loose. So I'm pretty happy for him for sticking by his guns. One would even think that he had a part in the regime change, but you never know. That's just a joke. But I hope that one day he becomes a world champion again. Sana they split up the world championships again, and one of it goes to Kevin Owens because he's been proving that this is a top guy run and he is putting out some top guy stuff.
I think Kevin Owens, first of all, Stan, your slang game on this episode, my God, deserve bias, Jesus. Anyway, I love all the work he's been putting out. He is a guy who's just there to work. He's, regardless of how stupid the role they give him is, diba yung I'm a liar, I'm not a liar, yung kalaban pa si Shane McMahon. Had to wrestle Shane McMahon. And then he also had to do all sorts of stupid crap. So sobrang, and after all of that, he's still there. He still decided to resign. He's a guy that is just there to work. Because he's just there to keep doing what he's doing. Diba? He's putting in that effort. He's putting in that time. If people don't believe he's the best, he wants to work to the point where people will actually believe otherwise. So parang ang ganda din nung promo niya during this week's episode of Raw because it encapsulates Kevin Owens' whole persona as a wrestler in his run in the WWE. And yes, I'm with Ro here. I want to see him as the champion once again.
Yeah, just a top guy doing top guy things. So
I just want to address Fred here. He said that AEW fans said that it was a wrong move for Kevin Owens to resign with WWE. I did think that it wasn't the right move. I don't know if it was wrong, but I did think that he deserved better. So, medyo swerte lang siya actually that it all worked out for him. Like, it was nice for him to get moments like the Stone Cold main event at WrestleMania. That was cool, but if you would remember, that was also like a bit of a mess that they had to go through and got lucky that it all turned out well. But after that, they were back to giving him some weird stuff that also incidentally was lucky enough to work out in his favor a little bit. So it's a testament to how good he is, but also the Vince treatment wasn't all great, I would say. So I wouldn't have opposed him going to another company.
Honestly, I feel like if he were to end up in AEW, I don't think he'd be given the same amount of attention that he's getting right now. Kasi sa dami ng tao doon, he's gonna have to compete for his slot in a 2-hour show once a week, diba? Or it's gonna be 3-hour shows twice a week, diba?
Or he might have to bite the man for us to talk about it.
Exactly. Hindi siya kasing dali ng iniisip ng mga tao. Whereas with the WWE, because he's established himself on a much bigger platform in front of a lot more fans, nagkaroon siya ng opportunity to make things work. Kahit basura yung material na binibigay sa kanya, he just made it work because he knew where he was. He knew the type of power he had. And that is just a testament to his talent.
I don't know, though. Would you rather be working with a schizophrenic guy wrestler who didn't know who he was, or would you have better storylines on a show that may not always have time for you? So there's that to consider as well. So I don't think it's as black and white as we're painting it to be. So my stance was just that I thought he deserved better, and I thought that he could have tried to get something better elsewhere. But anyway, that's all moot now because he's getting the run of his life now under Triple H.
Last bit here on Monday Night Raw, they're really building up to yung mga matches in the following week, which is something we've pointed out here on the podcast. And one of them is centered around the US Championship. And it really looks like the TV title now for Monday Night Raw, especially with the way that they've packaged Bobby Lashley and the title.
Yeah, okay, siya. Triple H knew that he couldn't split up the UWO Championship just yet, so his next best recourse is to put the US Championship up top on the marquee. So that's pretty good, really good of him to do. And on his part, to his credit, Bobby Lashley has been killing it.
Bobby has been given rather such a prime spot here, and he has not let anybody down yet. I feel like so. Parang because Raw needs a championship figure, and because hindi nagpapakita si Roman every week, much less on Raw, they needed somebody to take the helm on that side of the WWE world, and Bobby Lashley is a proven commodity in that regard. So, hats off to him. Buti nadadala niya.
Yeah, and I would argue that he's actually more over today than he was in the mid-2000s when they were really pushing him as the next big thing. So, really happy for Bobby Lashley and his success. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the AEW World Championship picture and the firm. But first, it is a payday, so here's another way for you to help support the podcast with your online shopping over on Shoppie.
Yep, it is a payday sale on Shoppie right now, September 15 only, I believe. So if you are getting things that you want and need on Shoppie as well, you can use our affiliate link, podlink.co/W9X, podlink.co/letter W, the number 9 and the letter X. Type that in your mobile browser, add to cart, and check out from the app. What you buy will also help us do what we do here in the podcast at no extra cost.
And now a quick word from our other podcasts on Podcast Network Asia.
Yeah, ako din. A part of me is curious about how a feud with Mox and MJF would look on the mic. I also want to give Mox his time off, like he's always wanted. And it's not like Brian ain't an ace. You know what I mean? He's just been there. Diba? And he's just been happy to let other people step ahead of him in the line that he's in. Right? Now, I feel like it's the perfect opportunity to not only be an AEW champion, but to develop a long-standing feud with MJF. Kasi here after making MJF being this established star here, and I feel like Bryan Danielson might just be the guy to turn MJF into a believable heel champion.
Meron pa bang shoutouts on Kumu?
No new comments, but again, if you are, if you want to join us on Kumu, just look for us, Wrestling Podcast, and keep smashing those hearts because we would love for you to let everyone else on Kumu know that you like the wrestling talk. So thank you again for tuning in to everyone and for those who have followed us.
All right. Let's go to AEW and talk about the World Championship situation. So we're getting Blackpool Combat Club members facing off with one another, Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson in the finals of the tournament. And I don't think any one of us really saw this result coming.
Well, it was nice, but it could have been Jericho again. So there's that. But I think, like I said earlier on the review, this is like for the maximum goodwill for AEW, especially after what happened last week. Like, you cannot go wrong with either of these guys. Diba? So, super safe and in the best possible way. So, my pick is Bryan Danielson, mostly because we know now that Jon Moxley was supposed to take a vacation after last week, but because of the whole brouhaha, he was forced to come back. So, I hope he loses and gets his vacation from here.
Yeah. Kasi heel siya, diba? Smarmy heel siya. Anyway, what I was trying to say, even if it's a Vince thing, it's not like it was the worst Vince idea ever. Diba? It's actually one of his better ideas, to be honest. It makes people watch wrestling. And because MJF now has the power to do it and might have the opportunity to do it, then guess what? More people will be watching Dynamite.
Eto, marami sa comments na nagsasabi na Bryan wins and then MJF cashes in the chip immediately. Will it be a good look for AEW if they pull a Money in the Bank ripoff?
Okay lang at this point kasi there's someone else that the AEW fan base really, really wants to see as champions, MJF. Like, that guy is so much more over than you realize, even though he tries his hardest to piss the crowd off and to insult the crowd.
Ito, sabi ni Aaron, character-wise, it also makes sense for MJF to do that.
I don't blame them because he is, I would say he's a needle mover for AEW. So it couldn't hurt, diba? It couldn't hurt to give him a try. And it seems like he's a little bit more professional than the other guy. So even though they pulled off that cash in, yes, it's a WWE move. Yes, it's a super Vince move. But it's one of those things that they really want to see happen.
All right. Any other thoughts on Mox versus Brian or yung World Championship scene, or you want to move to the firm?
Wala naman. I mean, I already said it. It's the best possible thing that they could do after what happened.
All right. Let's move on to Stokely Hathaway and the firm. So they were introduced as MJF's retainer guys, yung mga parang friends for hire or fighters for hire, if you want that local reference. I actually like the promo from Stokely here kasi hindi siya nagsayang ng oras eh. He actually talked about yung motivations niya as a character, why the firm exists, and then pag kailangan na nandyan sila, they're there. But if they're not on hire or for hire, they can go and pursue their respective championship aspirations. So like si Lee Moriarty, yung ROH Pure Championship, for Ethan Page, All Atlantic, then for the Guns, yung tags, and then for Morrissey, whatever he wants to do. So I actually like this explanation about what the firm's all about.
The explanation was fine, but I am still up in the air about what I feel for the firm. Like, yes, it's nice that he established na, okay, these guys can do whatever they want, but if MJF needs us, we'll be there for MJF. So at the end of the day, mga chuwariwa pa rin sila ni MJF. So I don't know how great that really is. Like, we can do our own thing, but if MJF needs us, we have to be there. We have to be on call, diba? So it sucks, especially for Ethan Page, who we thought was going to break out after being quietly disbanded from the Men of the Year. So he just goes back to being part of this collective that is serving someone else other than himself. So there's that. So I don't know what... They still could turn it around. They still could do a good job of it, but I don't know what... I'm not super excited about this for now.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, wow, another stable. Oh my God. Second, I don't really know how long the stable's going to last. Is it more than just a storyline explanation, di ba? Well, sabihin natin, i-cash in ni MJF yung chip. Baka lumabas tong limang to, di ba? Upakan si Brian Danielson. And then that'll be the end of that, right? You don't see them for another 6 months. So I don't know if this was like a necessary explanation here. Di ba? They really need to form a stable just to explain that particular plot point. I mean,
Pero yung gagawin mo may business card na nga na hinahand out si Stokely, diba? Like, they did build up to that point when Stokely was inviting and recruiting all of these guys one by one. So, dito rin naman papunta.
No, that wasn't where it was going. I thought that when Stokely was giving out, he was gonna, help their career. He was gonna help them reach new heights, not be a part of this MJS Private Security group.
Kasi di ba anong klaseng selling point nun? Sumama ka sa akin, aliporis ka ni MJF. Like, that's not a good way to get somebody, right?
Yeah.
O goons ka ni MJF.
If I were Ethan Page, right? I would be shocked at being conned like this. Oh, I signed up because I thought you were going to get me a title shot and stuff like that. But no, you're going to get me a title shot. But I also have to do MJF's dirty work because he's paying us. So there's that. So I don't know. It's really convenient. Yes, it works for Stokely only kasi si Stokely yung may connection kay MJF as his best friend. But these other guys, I don't want to be a part of this because I wanted to be, striking it out on my own. I thought you were going to help me be a star.
Yeah.
Ito.
Yeah, I don't know how long-standing this stable is.
Ito, comment ni John Christopher, AEW needs stables to give everyone TV time, which I think there is a bit of truth to this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was a thing as far back as NJPW, modern day NJPW. That's totally fine. I don't mind that. Pero at least yung ibang stables naman, hindi sila subservient to MJF or one other guy.
I mean, yeah, the AFO or the AHFO or whatever iterations they had back then.
But, you look at someone like the Blackpool Combat Club. They're not working for William Regal. Example. They are a collective of wrestlers trying to get glory by violence.
Let us know what you think in the chat, if you like the firm or if you don't like the firm, and what they're doing for MJF. In the meantime, let's get to our picks of the week. So people in the chat, you know what to do. Leave your picks in the comments. And I'm going to start with mine. I'm going to pick Johnny Gargano versus Chad Gable on Raw. Johnny Wrestling's first match in about 9 months. And because I am a Johnny Gargano fan, I will always be hyped for Johnny Wrestling getting in the ring ring, and it's just so good to watch him do his thing again. And I was pretty surprised na mahaba-haba yung match nila. It wasn't a squash. So really good time for Chad Gable then to rebuild himself after getting beaten up by Braun Strowman.
After 1 month of Triple H, nagugulat ka pa rin na it wasn't a squash.
I mean, it's only been a month.
That's pretty weird. Anyway, my pick of the week is from earlier today, Dynamite. Danielson versus Jericho 2 or 3 rather 2. It was a much better spot than their match at All Out. It wasn't bad, but it was just, in a bad spot after in hour 3 of a pretty long show. So there's that. It was much better as a TV main event. And they adjusted the style to make it work as well.
Okay, I have 2 for this week. One is She-Hulk because David Otunga was in it. So that technically counts. Please watch it. 2 is Claudio Castagnoli versus Dax Harwood.
Really good.
For the ROH Championship.
Really good.
These 2 guys were so underutilized in the WWE. And I say this just based off of this match. Because kahit wala si Cash Wheeler, Harwood has been proving why he is a singles superstar. So, ang ganda lang din yung match. I was pleasantly surprised.
Were you sports entertained, Chino?
I was very sports entertained by the top guy, Dax Harwood.
All right, let's get to the picks from the comments. Leo picks Solo versus Melo, and for AEW, Lucha Bros versus Swerve in Our Glory. Fred picks Gargano Gable, and Creed Brothers versus Pretty Deadly, the cage match. Also really good coming out of NXT. Emil picks the Kevin Owens promo. Giancarlo picks Gargano Gable. And the Brawling Brutes versus Imperium from SmackDown. Yun din, that was also a banger. Great 6-man tag, and I'm loving the fact that we're getting more Imperium. Janelle also picks that 6-man, and the Creed Brothers versus Pretty Deadly, and Gargano versus Gable. James Andre picks Mox versus Sammy Guevara. Jericho versus Bryan, and the Seth and Lashley backstage segment. Glendale picks Imperium versus Brawling Brutes, the KO promo. Danielson, Jericho, and Jun Kasai versus El Desperado. Admin Angelo picks the 6-man. Ina picks Moxley versus Sammy Guevara and Jericho versus Bryan. Julian picks MWF Road to Fate as a whole show. Good to know that you were there, Julian. Didn't see you at the show. I must have missed you.
Hindi ka nang pakilala.
Don't think we did that intentionally just to diss you.
Oo nga.
Sino pa ba? John Christopher.
Was that a Stan lyric?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Ano pa ba? Roman J picks Brawling Brutes versus Imperium, Gargano versus Gable, and Claudio versus Dax. Seth, new face and name in the comments, picks Gargano Gable and the Brawling Brutes versus Imperium. Albert Keane picks the Steel Cage match. Aaron picks Stingray singing Judas and Cobra Kai. Bryan versus Jericho, and Imperium versus the Brawling Brutes, and the KO promo, and MWF Road to Fate. Nga pala, sa mga nanood ng MWF Road to Fate, hope you guys had a good time because I did. Again, we're going to be doing the review on the audio-only version when your Dabarkads Ronwa, ASH, comes back from academic leave. All right, let's get to some plugs.
The hero of the people.
The people's champion.
The dentist of the people. I prefer when Rowan graduates. I would much prefer him as the wrestling dentist than Britt Baker,
or at least better than Isaac Yankum.
Oh, I guess there's that.
Yeah, definitely better than Isaac Yankum. Okay, Chino, any plugs?
Oh yeah, this 24th of September, Saturday, we're having a show. Now, previously I said it was our special. I changed it up. We are now calling it Laugh It Up Till September Ends. Bakit? Dahil may nauna na dun sa Earth, Wind, and Fire. So we were stuck with Green Day. Wala na kaming choice. But we're having an all-star spectacular featuring some people from Solid OK, 2 female comedians, and closing out the show is Mr. Muman Reyes. Check out my Instagram for more detail on tickets at Chino Superstats.
All right. How about Ro?
Good luck.
Well, thank you guys for watching Road to Fate. Whether you caught it live like Stan did and our friends did, or whether you are going to catch it on Gank when it releases, because we do that. We cut up the show into 30-minute blocks and release them on Gank. So if you want to catch Road to Fate, you don't have to FOMO yourself. All you got to do is go to ManilaWrestling.com. From there, you can subscribe to the MWF profile on Gank for $10 or around $540. You can pay through GCash, you can pay the credit card, debit card. Maraming options to pay. So if you don't want to miss out, it's really, really easy to sign up. Again, ManilaWrestling.com. And also, please follow us on TikTok. We're almost at 10K. Siguro mga 500 something followers so lang. Maybe, hopefully, by then, you can start monetizing and getting, partners, brand partners and stuff like that. So, sana lang. So, please help us get there. If you have TikTok and you haven't followed us yet, it is at Wrestling2XPod.
All right. For me, if since we're all going back on the road, if you find yourself on the road sa umaga, go tune in to First Thing in the Morning on Play FM, 7 to 10 a.m. So there. Like Rose said, social media, please follow us over there. On Spotify, it is The Wrestling Podcast. Please subscribe, leave a 5-star rating after you check out an episode. And if you want to keep chatting wrestling with us individually, it is at Monday Night Rowan, at Chino Supersized, at Roas War, and at _Stan C. We'll catch you next week. We've got the audio only and another live stream Thursday at 7 p.m. on Kumu at Wrestling Pod and on Facebook.com/Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much to the PNA team for all of the work that they do behind the scenes. And as usual, reminders namin to everyone, please keep your masks on, especially when you're indoors, and get your vaccines and your boosters if and when you can. On behalf of Chino Liao and Ro Moran, my name is Stan C. Wrestling Podcast out. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Podcast Network Asia, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.